That's Nick.
And that's Joseph. And today we're here to talk about Migration, directed by Benjamin Renner and Gilo Homsey, which Universal is releasing December 22nd, 2023.
Have these two worked together before?
Not as directors. Previously, Renner directed Ernest and Celestine, a 2012 animated film, and Gilo was part of the visual effects team on Despicable Me.
This film, a family of ducks try to convince their overprotective father to go on the vacation of a lifetime. What is your pull quote?
Fair is foul, and foul is fair in Migration, a cute but monotonous family film which will slip from your memory as fast as water off a duck's back.
Mine. Migration's sweet, if not overly thin plot feels like it would be more appropriate as a Saturday morning episode than a cinematic event. Yeah, I mean, this felt like a cartoon I'd watch, on a Saturday morning. I don't know.
Well, back in the day, and now it doesn't. I wouldn't be watching it.
Sure.
I was surprised to learn that Mike White, who's probably best known now for the showrunner, creator of the White Lotus series, wrote this. He's also a notable director. I love Year of the Dog, and if you haven't seen him in Chuck and Buck, you're missing something. But this, I was surprised to see that he wrote this.
The story is very simple. There's a family of ducks, mom, dad, two little kids, and an uncle. And they live somewhere. We don't know where, but it would appear maybe they're like in New England or New York State. But they live in a pond, and they've never left the pond because the dad is paranoid.
Mac.
Voiced by
Kumail Nanjiani.
He's paranoid about his family's safety, so they don't go anywhere.
And Pam, his wife, is voiced by Elizabeth Banks.
So one day, a flock of other ducks show up at the pond to make a pit stop because they're on their way to Jamaica. And the son, who I guess is like a teenager in duck years, he meets a girl from that flock. And they instantly hit it off. And she's like, oh, you should come with us to Jamaica. And her parents like, yeah, come on. And the dad, Kumail, is like, hell no, we're not leaving. But then we see Elizabeth Banks gets upset. Like, we don't ever do anything. I don't want to live my life like this. So he says, okay, let's go. So the five of them try to fly to Jamaica on their own without other ducks to lead them. And they come across two obstacles. They overcome those obstacles. They end up in Jamaica, the end.
And what finally instigates Mac, Kumail's character, is they also, part of their flock is his Uncle Dan, voiced by Danny DeVito, who's kind of this fat old duck that is complacent, and he sees his future self if they don't ever leave.
The film opens with the dad telling his children like a scary story to instill fear in them so they'll never leave their little area.
Much like Dogtooth.
Which I thought was a cute start.
Yes, and that urban duck legend has something to do with the big bad heron eating them.
Yes. When we meet the migrating ducks, the ones who are on their way to Jamaica, who did you say they look like?
I leaned over.
That made me laugh.
I leaned over and said, "Those ducks look like Crowy Grace Moretz."
The best part of the film.
Chloe.
Yeah. The best part of the film by far is when we meet the scary heron, voiced by...
A great voice performance from Carol Kane as Erin the Heron.
Yeah, that was spectacular. She's living in...
She looks like a flooded Baba Yaga hut.
When we first meet her, it's a very creepy scene, and then she convinces these mallard ducks to go back with her for safety.
Because they're in a rainstorm.
Because they've been caught in a rainstorm and they don't know where to go. So she brings them back and we see that her old ass husband is there.
That's reminded me of Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Oh my gosh, it was so good. And then she makes a bed. She's like, let me make the spare bed for you. And it's a frying pan. And as the audience, we think she's going to eat them. But really she's protecting them because she says, you need to stay in your bed. Because at night, that's when predators come out. And so they're sleeping with one eye open, which I thought was funny. But then we find out that she wasn't kidding. There are some predatory fish in the water. So
a catfish.
the heron, Aaron the heron, ends up saving the family. But even when they say goodbye to her the next morning, it's still unclear to me like whether or not she actually wants to eat them. I thought that little 4-minute sequence was brilliant.
The best, by far the best. Aaron the Heron, I'd rather see a film built around her, as voiced by Carol Kane.
But then after that, they leave and they end up flying wherever they think they're going because they don't know how to get to Jamaica really. And they end up in what appears to be New York City because someone mentions the great statue, which I'm assuming is the Statue of Liberty. But they get caught in some skyscrapers. They meet
They run into a flock of pigeons
who are led by Aquafina.
playing a character named Chump. And yes, that's when it's for sure that we're in New York because they're like, we're going to Jamaica. And she goes, isn't that in Queens?
You're right, yes. But the introduction of Aquafina as this pigeon is funny because we hear Kumail's voice getting upset because the pigeons are trying to steal a sandwich from the uncle and he calls them trashy, trashy vermin. And all of a sudden from the background, you hear Aquafina. Like, what did you call us? I thought her little voice working character were cute.
Cute enough. Chump has this big bulbous head.
And one leg.
She reminded me of like Vanessa Kirby's haircut after the Revolution in Napoleon.
Oh yes, actually. So the
Chump is like, I know somebody that knows how to get to Jamaica. I'll take you to him. And it's a character named Delroy, who I believe is supposed to be a macaw.
Voiced by Keegan-Michael Key. This bird is from Jamaica. But this bird is locked up because he's the pet of a chef who specializes in like duck cuisine. This is where I think the story just kind of felt like y'all just wrote anything.
And then Delroy, to me, is written like he was abducted from his homeland, like he was slave traded.
Well, and then I don't know how people feel about this, but I thought it was kind of weird that someone who's not Jamaican is doing like a really heavy caricature of a Jamaican accent that became grating very quickly. But then a big part of the middle part of the movie is this family trying to get the key from this villainous chef so they can unlock Delroy the macaw because he knows how to get them to Jamaica, his homeland. I thought that entire sequence was... I don't like the way the villain is drawn. He has those tiny little legs with the big upper body. I didn't like that. There's a sequence where like in the chef's restaurant, it's like, I don't know if it's like Taco Tuesday and they're having salsa night. So now all of a sudden they're dancing salsa. I thought that was really
Salsa Tuesday.
kind of stupid.
It was, but so they get Delroy free and then they fly into this what appears to be a duck paradise. They make it there by accident.
The Garden of Harmony, which it looks like it's like duck yoga.
There is a group leader, and it looks like there's a playground, a water park, and all the food that these big fat white ducks can eat. And immediately I'm like, oh well, they're getting fattened up to be
Fagua.
Yeah.
Pate, whatever. Yeah. So then of course that's another obstacle, but we find out that those ducks are being sold to the chef. So he shows up in his like semi truck. I thought that was silly. Then the ducks escape because they realize they're going to be eaten. And then all of a sudden the chef has like a branded helicopter that is specifically equipped to capture ducks. I thought that was dumb.
In New York.
And the family trying to escape the helicopter. I thought that was lame, but whatever. Obviously they're able to escape. And then with the help of Delroy the macaw and with the company of these other ducks who are about to be killed, they do make it to Jamaica. But of course, there has to be a last minute gag, which is that Delroy gets lost. He realizes like he really doesn't know how to get to Jamaica. But we're told early in the film that Jamaica has glowing water. So when they land in the ocean and Delroy admits he doesn't know where he's going, so they're going to have to go back to New York, then the water starts glowing. And then we see that they are at Jamaica. And then we fast forward to the following spring and we see that they've had a lovely time there. The little daughter has made a big old alligator her pet. And her character does something 3 times where she screeches like please, like a really drawn out please in a way that I'm sure kids would like. I found it grating. And then they agreed to take a flock of penguins to the South Pole.
Oh, even though their mode of transport would be different, and I don't know, ducks aren't, impervious to elements. I don't think they'd live.
So my first thought is I was a little disappointed because other animated films we've seen that I liked, they feel smart. Like they're for kids, but kids are smart and kids ask questions. So they usually like handle the questions so that it settles the kids down. In this movie, I was so confused, like, why isn't this flock of ducks migrating?
Yeah, how are they hibernating through the winter?
Like, yeah, because they appear to live in a place that has weather and seasons.
Yeah, I think it would have been beneficial to explain the backstory of Mac, and maybe he was a domesticated mallard, and that's why.
Something.
I don't know. It just seems.
I didn't like that they're going to go on this journey with the penguins. Like you said, it doesn't make sense that they would get there in the same mode of transportation. Other things I didn't care for, there's a lot of screaming in this movie. Like,
Screeching.
maybe I'm just a grouchy old man, but in the theater I thought, God, this is so loud.
It's like you have John Powell, who's an Oscar-nominated composer for How to Train Your Dragon, doing the score that I can't even recall the score now. I was also, a lot of these kids animated films, I feel like you're held hostage and having to sit through a short animated film beforehand.
Oh, that's right.
Unless they're really good, I'm usually like, I wish I had adoption. Could I opt out of this? But this was Mooned, which is of the Minions universe, focused on a character named Vector, who I'm unfamiliar with, and directed by Jonathan Del Val, who's also directed Minions: The Rise of Gru last year. I didn't need that.
It was cute. I don't know that I needed it, but yeah, I mean, it's basically about this guy stuck on the moon and he's trying to get off, but he's ignoring the minions who are actually trying to help him. And then he ends up getting off the moon, but then getting stuck on Mars. They try to help him again.
But he's rude.
He's rude. So I guess the moral of the story is to be nice to strangers. I don't know. But
I mean, Carol Kane is a sweet little bright spot in this. I think Danny DeVito's entertaining in the way he looks like Diabetic Duck.
I thought he was funny because he's very apathetic about
hypertension.
everything. And then it's funny because it's like, could he even make this trip? Mm-hmm. But he does. Like, that's the joke of it, I think, and it did work for me. But other than that, I thought this was real basic, but cute. Like on an airplane, I guess I wouldn't be mad. What would you give Migration?
I'm giving it 2.
Oh, I would give it 2.5 out of 5. It was okay. Anything else?
No.
Hit the thanks button. Listen to our podcast. Bye.